This video is called Martyrdom and Death Before Dishonor as a Peace-Loving Christian. So do not be afraid of them. There is nothing concealed that will not be disclosed, or hidden that will not be made known. What I tell you in the dark, speak in the daylight. What is whispered in your ear, proclaim from the roofs. Do not be afraid of those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. Rather be afraid of the one who can destroy both soul and body in hell. It goes on to say, whoever acknowledges me before men, I will also acknowledge him before my Father in heaven. But whoever disowns me before men, I will disown him before my Father in heaven. Do not suppose that I have come to bring peace to the earth. Now this is said after, mind you, telling you to man up. He said, look, you will man up even though they're in charge if you want to go to heaven. And you will proclaim my glory and not water down my gospel. Do not deny my truths, especially when you know what you are doing. And what does that lead to? War, right? Do not suppose that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. Remember, swords are fashioned for different purposes. This is a spiritual sword specifically fashioned to defeat the enemies of God. For I have come to turn a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies will be the members of his own household. And I go as far as to say, this is my words, that will include them drugging you and playing stupid when the government persecutes you as well. Now, intellect is important, but martial arts prowess is divine. And the proper evolution of martial arts ends in Scripture winning the spiritual victory and becoming the dominant religion on earth, naturally, with grace perfecting nature. The war has been won, and now you're using technology and drugs to twist things. That is not the same as the natural spiritual victory of Christianity. And I applaud the church and all real Christians who help achieve the true victory of the true gospel with the Spirit of God. There is no compromise. We must stand firm, as on my wall is Matthew 10:22. Stand firm, even though you're going to be hated by everyone. Even though you will be hated by everyone because of me. But the one who stands firm to the end will be saved. So there's no, let's compromise to make things easier in Christianity. So now let's look at this. What happens when you are in bondage and they're saying, no, go to my kind of church, do it my kind of way, and we're going to make laws that violate God's laws. Well, then people in the church start working with secret societies, and the government and the pagans have their secret societies too, and they all have their ideas about how life should be, how the system should be. The evolution of secret society groups, and cults that bully people and make people pay taxes and tariffs and run certain areas became gangs, right? For example, you'll have prison gangs that make you pay taxes to them, right? Taxes is what it's called. Now, this is the evolution of the cults that make governments, right? You have these governments emerging in the gang structure, and they're being solidified in the belly of the beast. They're being consecrated satanically in the belly of the beast, while compromising with the beast from the perspective of a criminal, whether they got there from being a revolutionary or not. So the output is Satanism, satanic gang culture coming from the prisons, satanic revolutionary culture contributed to by people who've been to prison and so on. Of course, you'll see the symbolism, and you see how they're pushing their culture and the skinny jeans, and more than accounts for that. Checks and balances, okay? They're giving you checks, and they're demanding Luciferian perspectives and Luciferian balance, the checkered floor of Masonry, the yin-yang, the Platonian philosophy, Neoplatonism, the idea that there's just imperfections, and you have to use some kind of a Luciferian scale to figure out the balance. To make a long story short, is how it's interpreted by the different Luciferian societies that make up the hierarchy and the fabric of the secret society structure. So African Igbo maneuvers, okay, that are based on nature, and they're refined through the grace of the church, such as you see with the Igbos and the Catholics, the Catholic Church and the direction of Igbos as men who assimilate into society, because God has called many of them, to assimilate to a certain degree, but to still hold on to their faith and their, to a certain extent, their tribal customs, right? Because that is the perspective of these people and the direction that they went. So the children of the African martial artists became Christians and Catholics, and were ringing church bells, doing martial arts in Brazil. And because of the intense mind control programs that took place in America, because it was a lot more hotly contested historically than Brazil was by the powers of Europe, you have this suppression, this agreed suppression of African martial arts more intensely playing out in the Americas. And you have less effective secret society opposition in America than you do in Brazil. And for the same reason, you have more Masons in America now, because it has to do with the Masonic influence of America versus that of Brazil. And as a result, the resulting suppression of martial arts, because Masonry would give you eugenics, and Masons would say, we got to do things in a way that is practical and pragmatic, the age of enlightenment and their ideas of reason. So they would roll with the eugenic system that would suppress martial arts as well. So you get those who want to suppress it because they don't want to compete financially with African martial arts systems. They don't want to compete socially and spiritually. And then you have those who just roll with it because they've decided it's what's practical, right? They're not really caring about what's right or what God wants, but what is practical. So the difference between the African-American resistance and the more respectable Afro-Brazilian resistance, you'll see that the rebellions in America were few and far between compared to the Haitian Revolution and compared to the wars in Brazil, and Zumbi and them, and Palmeiras and South America. And the reason for this is Masonic mind control techniques and demanding that sort of a culture instead of a culture that is more in line and allowed for African martial arts expression. So when you see the biblical message is correct, okay, it's a patriarchal earth, the natural leader message, these great leaders inspired by God like David, I am the root and the offspring of David, specifically someone who rose to power by being a warrior and defeating Goliath, okay? Not mind control society bitches. So natural people who are naturally chosen, not by sorcerers like those in Egypt and Babylon and the pagans who doubted the Christians and before that the Jews, but who is naturally chosen in reality, not using mind control, pagan trickery, and people who worship pagan gods of trickery and pagan science to determine things of the spirit, but rather nature and the grace of the true spirit. Varying degrees of evil. So, we must recognize that there are varying degrees of evil, and we must also recognize that we must be wary and be vigilant while being careful how we judge people, because ultimately, as you judge, you shall be judged. And the highest form of your spiritual journey is, as a really old person, I would say the phase who doesn't judge anyone, who just exists and then fades away, right? That's one way to look at it. Or a great warrior who dies in battle, okay? But regardless, you know, during your rise there and to rule society, there has to be a certain amount of judgment, and the scale you use has to be, you know, soaked in morality. Has to be the essence of sacred morality, has to be the scale you use, and your ability to apply that to your life, you know, in your judgments and your discernments, you know, determines your position in the spiritual order that exists. It's a living spiritual order. As Jesus was a living God, he was in the flesh, he was already above the other people because of his spiritual power is the ultimate reason. But the path that led him there was his understanding, and that included spiritual warfare and understanding why, you know, certain forms of martial arts are superior has to do with that, understanding that perspective, right? If you don't see it that way, then you're not going to appreciate why moving energy in the name of God and achieving that victory is preferable. You know, the pagan victory can never be greater than the Christian victory, because the Christian victory is the truth, you know. But even if you remove these concepts, and even if the Bible wasn't true, you know, the ideas of natural truth being preferred and being the true direction of humanity, what is truly best, what is naturally, it's like that is best. Well, naturally, okay, is the natural leaders, not people using mind control, mind manipulation, refining it using music. Not all music is bad, but music, when refined by luciferians, is used for mind control, right? And the different they study the brain waves and how the music interacts with the brain, and they study it with mental health and how to control the mind using different music, you know, music therapy, you know, art therapy. These are Luciferian ideas of how to achieve a balance and how to control the mind. So how they apply it is evil, not it itself. It's the same thing with the church. How Luciferians apply the church is evil, not the idea of the church itself or of religion itself. So the color, the spheres, the symbols, okay, they use all this stuff. The architecture, the masonry, you know, the feng shui, right? The peer pressure, the substances, the sugars beyond the drugs, what people don't perceive to be drugs, but that are actually affecting the mind as well. The food itself, the rituals, the ceremonies, the energies, the idling, you know, the idols, the idolatry and American idols, and feeling the energy of the group, and the many other approaches to mind control that they use. So we have Roman pagan ideas of how civilization should be, and what are higher forms are more civilized life, and what is more conducive to progress from a Luciferian kind of neo-Roman, neo-pagan perspective. So these people are propped up by their neo-Roman and neo-pagan clubs. I'm running out of time here, so let me just wrap this up. So this is an inversion. God is what people naturally choose. The devil has to cheat and use deceit and wow you with science and sorcery and trickery and propaganda and TVs and, you know, entertainment to get you to see it his way, right? To distract you from what is naturally best, naturally superior, get you to do drugs and sexual immorality and spread STDs and what have you. So, so Luciferian perception of worth, celebrities using evil Luciferianism to do good for themselves. So they say, hey, you're doing good for yourself by going along, you know, with what they're doing. Good job. You're doing good for yourself. Using the word good when good is reserved for that which is sacred and that which is divine. And if it's not in accord with that which is sacred and divine, you know, then you're not doing good for yourself. Okay, Hitler was said to be influenced by Blavatskyism. So when you see all these new age white people pushing this, you know, Roman secret society kind of eugenic, you know, derived secret society, it's a no-brainer. It's racist as hell. Even if they're liberals crying about black people getting abused every moment of their life, you know, when their philosophy is a racist philosophy that led to Nazism, that led to Zionism. It is this me, evil kind of philosophy. Blavatsky was the mother of the New Age, right? And also, you know, Hitler was said to have slept with her book, The Secret Doctrine. So she was the mother of Nazism in many ways as well. Pike was a Confederate general, you know, Galton eugenicist. So we have a long history of people looking, as Masons, looking for different angles to take to justify white supremacy and to put whites above other people. I'm out of time.